How's it going today, guys? Today we're going to be talking about finding the least common denominator between two fractions. What that means is when we have two fractions, they both have a denominator, right? Just as you can see here. And if they're not the same, we want to know what is a denominator that both of these fractions could have if I have to convert them into some level of equivalent fractions, to whether it's add, subtract, or even just compare. So over here we know, okay, well 1/2, 3/4, you probably could tell me 3/4 is bigger than 1/2. You probably also could tell me that 1/2 is the same as 2/4, and then you could say, well, I can add 2/4 plus 3/4, right? But the thing is, before you even get to this problem, you had to know that 2/4 could come from 1/2, right? You had to know that 1/2 could be turned into 2/4. And a lot of people know this kind of automatically because it's something that your brain picks up on pretty quick. But what we're going to be talking about today is when you get to trickier fractions, what method can you use to find the least common denominator? Okay, so I'm going to erase all my scribbles now, and we're going to start talking about this method. So finding the least common denominator. So first I'm going to look at my current denominators. Now they are not the same, right? They are not common. They are two different denominators. And today I want to think about, well, what is the smallest one that both of these fractions could have in common? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to list the denominators, so the multiples of the denominators, excuse me. So I'm going to say, okay, well 2, and then the second multiple of 2, so 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, and then 2 times 3 is 6, and then you might pick up on this is kind of like counting by 2, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and then 14, and so forth. We could go on and on and on, right? Because there's infinite multiples of 2. Now 4, let's list the multiples of 4. So we have 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, and I'm going to stop there because we want to find the least common denominator, okay? So that's the trickiest part about this, is there's a ton of common denominators, but there's only one least common denominator. There's only one denominator that is the smallest. So I'm going to look at my list and I'm going to see the ones I have in common. So I have 4 in common, I have 8 in common, I have 12 in common, right? And there's just so many more that we have in common, but we want to know what's the least, right? What's the smallest? If I look, 4 is the least common denominator, okay? And we're not going to go on to what to do with this information just yet. This video is only on finding the least common denominator. But if you want to know maybe how to turn 1/2 into an equivalent fraction, or how to add these fractions or compare them, look for another video that's going to be following this one. This is just the very beginning. So let's move on to the next one here. We have 3 and we have 4. We want to find the least common denominator. So we're going to list the multiples of 3, and then we're going to list the multiples of 4, and we're going to find the least one, or the smallest one they have in common. So why don't you try that right now on your own paper? Okay, I hope you paused the video and gave this a shot. I'm going to list the multiples of 3 for starters. So I'm going to go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. I'm just going to stop there, okay? I'm going to go down, I'm going to list the multiples of 4. I'm going to go 4, because you always got to start with the first multiple, right? If you have 3 and 4, you've got to start with 3. You've got to start with 4. A lot of people will forget that. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Now, do we have any common denominators in this list, or any common multiples? 3 is not common, 6 is not common, 9, 12. 12 is common. Any other common multiples? I do not see any others, especially in the smaller numbers, right? 9 is not in common, 6 is not in common, 8, 4 not in common. So 12 would be the least common denominator if I had something thirds and something fourths. Okay, let's go up to 4 and 10 now. Why don't you pause the video and try this one by yourself, and then restart the video and see what I got. Okay, So let's give this a go. I want to point a couple things out before we find the least common denominator for 4 and 10. First, I want to point out a lot of people, when they look at 3 and 4 down here, some people say, oh, 3 times 4 equals 12. So 12 is the least common denominator. That does not work every time, right? Especially even if we look up here at 2 and 4. We can tell that didn't work up there because 2 times 4 is 8. So, and 4 was our answer up there. So I guess our first one just proved it. But I just want to point that out because a lot of people will definitely get in the habit of just thinking multiply the denominators and you're good. You'll find a common multiple for sure, but it won't be the least. So anyway, back over here to 4 and 10. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. I'm going to stop here because I know my next number is 10. So multiples of 10 are really easy to spot. So I'm looking at that 20, but I'm going to show it just to prove it. 10, 20, 30, 40, and we can see 20 is the lowest multiple that they have in common, so it's the least common denominator. Okay. Now, this is just another instance where a lot of people, especially when this is new, will just decide to go, oh, 4 times 10 equals 40, so that would be my answer. Once again, we know that 3/4 could be turned into 30/40ths, right? 30/40ths is equivalent. And 7/10 could be turned into something 40ths, but that would not be the least common denominator to use, okay? So I just want to point out that common misconception. Let's go down to 5/7 and 2/3. Take a look at those. Try to find the least common denominator. And I'll do it now. I'll start by listing 7, 14, 21, 28. And then let's list the multiples of 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12. And this is going to go on for a while. So once you get in the habit of things, you might be able to list one set of multiples and go, okay, well, I list the multiples of 7 here and go, well, 3 doesn't go into 7, 3 doesn't go into 14, 3 does go into 21, right? So 21 is at least looking like it's going to be the least common denominator, especially based on a list of multiples of 7. Well, I'm going to finish out this list of multiples of 3 just for us to see that that's true. So 12, 15, 18, 21. So sure enough, 21 is our least common denominator. Okay, I hope this is helpful. This is just the very beginning of working with fractions with different denominators. So this really is just starting you off on actually using other skills regarding whether it's converting fractions into equivalent fractions or adding, subtracting, comparing fractions. There's tons of uses and reasons why you need to know how to find the least common denominator, but this video is just for that single skill. We didn't talk about any other ones really, okay? So I hope this helped. If it did, maybe hit thumbs up, maybe leave a comment, let me know it helped, or if there's any other ways I could improve this video, all right? Thank you for watching.